The malfunction began subtly, a faint flicker in the otherwise stable energy flow of Grelax 7's power grid, barely noticeable at first. But soon, the tremors spread through the station systems, causing a ripple of dimming lights and intermittent power losses across the massive spaceport. The pole at the center of the hangar, a towering structure filled with intricate circuitry and gleaming tubes, was the primary stabilizer for the entire station's energy network. Alien engineers from several species, each a master in their own field, gathered around the pole, diagnosing it with a mix of advanced tools and scanners. Normally, their combined expertise could solve any problem within minutes, but this time was different. Despite their efforts, the pole's malfunction grew worse, sparking wildly and sending erratic surges of energy into nearby systems. Control panels buzzed with error messages in multiple alien languages, warning of a potential shutdown across the spaceport's power grid. The gathered engineers shared tense glances, baffled by the failure of such a sophisticated piece of technology. They had tried everything in their arsenal, replacing conduits, recalibrating the circuitry, even rerouting energy around the damaged sections, but nothing seemed to work. Alien specialists, renowned for their knowledge of energy mechanics, were called in from across the sector. Some had dedicated their lives to mastering energy stabilization technology, yet even they were left scratching their heads. Every attempt to repair the pole only seemed to escalate the issue, causing short circuits, sparks, and worsening energy fluctuations. At the peak of the crisis, a final diagnostic revealed something truly alarming. If the malfunction couldn't be contained, the entire power grid would collapse, leaving the spaceport and possibly the surrounding sectors in complete darkness. As the situation grew more dire, an emergency message echoed through the hallways of Grelax 7, summoning any available specialists to the scene. Most of the top-tier alien engineers had already exhausted their efforts and were left standing in frustration and disbelief. Amid the crowded hangar bay, an alien guard named Zarnak, who had witnessed several of the failed repair attempts, suddenly recalled hearing about a human mechanic who had a knack for fixing things using unconventional methods. Desperate for a fresh approach, Zarnak decided it was time to try something unorthodox. He made his way to a quieter part of the spaceport, toward the workshop of Jack Thorne. Jack was one of the few humans allowed in this part of the galaxy, and his role on Grelax 7 had always been a bit of an oddity. Unlike most mechanics on the station, Jack wasn't trained in advanced alien engineering. He worked with his hands, using a humble set of tools brought from Earth and a practical approach that often seemed primitive compared to alien technology. To the alien elites, he was almost a curiosity, a relic from a less advanced world. Zarnak found Jack hunched over a small contraption he'd been tinkering with, his hands stained with grease and his face etched with the calm focus of someone who lived for hands-on work. Jack looked up, surprised to see Zarnak in his workshop. "Jack Thorne," Zarnak said, his voice tinged with urgency. "Your assistance is required in the main hangar immediately. There is a malfunction with the power stabilizer, and none of our engineers can find a solution." Jack raised an eyebrow, catching the tension in the alien's crystalline features. He wiped his hands on his rag, a small smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. "And you think a human with a toolbox is going to do what all those fancy engineers couldn't?" Zarnak straightened, clearly unaccustomed to asking for help from anyone outside his own expert circle. "You have a unique perspective. We've tried every known method of repair. There is nothing to lose." Jack nodded, grabbing his worn-out toolbox. He followed Zarnak through the winding corridors of Grelax 7, moving past panels that flickered ominously as the power crisis grew worse. When they arrived at the hangar, the alien engineers looked up in surprise, murmuring among themselves as Jack approached the malfunctioning pole. Jack set down his toolbox and observed the chaotic scene. Alien engineers in elaborate uniforms, armed with advanced tools that whirred and glowed, were gathered around the massive power stabilizer pole, looking exhausted and defeated. The pole itself crackled with erratic pulses of energy, arcs of blue and green light illuminating the darkening hangar. He could feel the weight of skeptical stares from the crowd as he calmly surveyed the device. Ignoring the whispers around him, Jack rolled up his sleeves and opened his modest toolbox. To the shock of everyone present, he pulled out a few basic items: a roll of electrical tape, a small wrench, and a coil of frayed string. The alien engineers exchanged bewildered glances, some muttering in disbelief at the sight of such primitive tools. An alien technician with multiple glowing eyes leaned over to another and whispered, "This human intends to fix a stabilizer with string and tape?" Jack barely paid attention to them as he examined the damaged sections of the pole. He could see right away where the alien engineers had tried to replace pieces and reroute circuits with high-tech adjustments. But, to his trained eye, the problem looked deceptively simple. Near the base of the pole, a small section of exposed wiring had shorted out, creating an unstable current. Without hesitation, he knelt down, pulled off a length of electrical tape, and wrapped it tightly around the frayed section of wiring. The tape provided just enough insulation to keep the wires stable, stopping the surge of sparks that had been erupting with each pulse. A few aliens gasped audibly, clearly taken aback by such a straightforward fix. Next, he spotted a loose coupling higher up that was causing the pole to wobble each time the current surged. While the alien engineers had tried complex recalibration tools to secure it, Jack simply tied it back into place with a few deft loops of his string. He tugged on it to test the tension, then nodded with satisfaction. The onlookers were silent, their gazes fixed on the human who had somehow managed to stabilize key sections of the pole with little more than what they considered primitive materials. Even though the tools looked crude by their standards, the effect was immediate. The erratic pulses of energy began to even out, the hum of the machinery growing steadier by the second. Jack stepped back, hands on his hips, watching as the pole returned to a controlled rhythm. For a moment, the hangar was filled with a charged silence, the kind that precedes a revelation. As the steady hum of the repaired pole filled the hangar, the aliens surrounding Jack stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. Many had been trained for cycles in high-level intergalactic engineering, familiar with cutting-edge technology from the far reaches of the galaxy. Yet here was this human, casually wielding a roll of tape and a piece of string, achieving what their sophisticated tools had failed to accomplish. A few of the engineers stepped closer, examining the tape-wrapped wires and the string-tied coupling with a mix of fascination and horror. To them, such materials were little more than relics of pre-civilized worlds, useful for nothing more than binding small packages. Yet here, they had resolved a crisis that had baffled some of the most advanced minds in the sector. Zarnak, the Valgorthian guard, was among the first to break the stunned silence. His crystalline features were drawn in a look of utter disbelief. This is impossible," he muttered, inspecting the repairs. "These are not materials suited for high-energy stabilizers. This should not have worked." Nearby, a Xyloctan engineer, whose species prided themselves on their intricate technological craftsmanship, leaned in with several of her gleaming eyes narrowed. She gently touched the section of electrical tape, feeling its textured surface as though it were some artifact from another age. "The simplicity," she murmured. "No complex bindings, no plasma welds. Just this tape?" More aliens gathered, pointing and whispering, exchanging theories about how a repair so rudimentary could have fixed such a critical piece of technology. Some argued it was a fluke, an accident that had temporarily stabilized the pole. Others suggested that perhaps humans possessed some unique mechanical intuition, one that allowed them to see solutions in ways their advanced minds could not comprehend. Even the Phalarak's ambassador, a towering figure with tendrils that waved rhythmically in the air, seemed almost reverent as he spoke. "It seems we have underestimated this human ability," he said in a deep, resonant voice. "They have an approach we cannot quite understand." Jack couldn't help but chuckle, listening to their speculations as if he'd uncovered some ancient mystery. "It's not magic," he said, hands in his pockets as he surveyed the crowd. "Sometimes things break in ways that fancy tech just can't fix. A little common sense goes a long way." The Phalarak's ambassador tilted his head thoughtfully, as though considering a new law of the universe. Around him, other aliens were nodding, each realizing that they had perhaps been blind to the benefits of a simpler approach. Even the proudest engineers among them looked at Jack with a newfound respect, recognizing the value of his unorthodox methods. News of the human mechanic's unexpected success spread through the spaceport like a supernova. Within hours, almost every corner of Grelax 7 was buzzing with tales of Jack Thorne, the human who had repaired the critical power stabilizer with nothing more than string and ancient adhesives. To the alien inhabitants, the story sounded almost mythological. An outsider wielding materials from a primitive planet to fix a technological failure that had eluded even their most advanced specialists. Soon, Jack's once quiet workshop was packed with alien visitors. Engineers, merchants, travelers, and curious onlookers alike crowded around, eager to see the miracle mechanic in action. Many of the station's inhabitants began bringing Jack their own malfunctioning devices, personal items, ship components, and complex machinery that had baffled them for months. From pocket-sized translators to navigation units to intricate holographic projectors, every piece of tech seemed to find its way into his shop. The aliens watched in fascination as Jack went to work with his mix of basic tools and a keen eye for practical solutions. Often, he would bypass intricate circuitry and reroute connections in ways that seemed almost absurdly straightforward to his clients. A Xylocton noble, whose hologram projector hadn't functioned in years, gasped in delight when Jack restored it in a matter of minutes with only a few twists of wire and a strip of duct tape. To her, and many others, it appeared that Jack wielded an almost magical ability to breathe life back into their machines. Before long, alien engineers who had once scoffed at the idea of learning from a human began watching him closely, taking notes on his techniques. Some tried to reverse engineer his methods, only to find themselves repeatedly stymied by what seemed like a mystical human intuition for mechanics. The way Jack approached each device, listening to its hum, feeling its vibrations, and sometimes simply giving it a firm tap, was so foreign to the precise, calculated practices of the alien engineers that they found themselves in awe. Jack's reputation continued to grow as he worked on increasingly complex requests. He was even called to assist on high-profile projects, some for ships belonging to dignitaries from distant planets, others for the station itself. With each successful repair, his fame spread wider, earning him the unofficial title of the Miracle Mechanic. Rumors began circulating that Jack could fix almost anything, from power cores to gravity regulators, all with his uncanny mix of hands-on ingenuity and a no-nonsense approach. As demand for his work rose, Grelax 7's leadership officially recognized him, granting him a dedicated workshop in the heart of the hangar bay. The small, humble shop was soon equipped with human and alien tools alike, a testament to Jack's growing influence. Tech-savvy aliens would often come in not just to observe, but to ask questions, seeking to learn the ways of this Earth-born machine whisperer. Jack's insights, which had initially seemed almost laughably simple, now inspired a quiet but undeniable shift among the station's engineers. Though Jack himself remained humble, taking each repair request as it came, the term miracle mechanic continued to carry weight throughout Grelax 7. His simple, practical approach became a legend, a story that travelers from all around would share as they passed through the station. Over time, Jack Thorne's influence spread beyond the confines of Grelax 7, weaving its way into the culture of the station and, eventually, into other spaceports and engineering circles across the sector. Engineers, scientists, and technicians from dozens of species began adopting what they referred to as Thorne's Law. That often, the simplest solution was the most effective. What had started as an unexpected fix with electrical tape and string became a mindset, challenging assumptions about the limits of technology and innovation. Jack's unconventional repairs led alien engineers to reevaluate their own methods, questioning whether the most advanced solutions were always the best. Training programs on Grelax 7 adapted to include practical mechanics, courses that emphasized Jack's style, teaching future engineers to listen to machines, to work with their hands, and to trust that even the humblest materials could be powerful tools. Graduates of these programs often left with a small kit modeled after Jack's own, complete with duct tape, wire, and a bit of string, a nod to the philosophy he had inspired. Beyond engineering, Jack's story became a symbol of humility and open-mindedness, an example for those in every field who might encounter problems that seemed unsolvable. His approach encouraged leaders, scientists, and innovators to remember that great minds didn't always need the greatest tools, and that even the most primitive of solutions could hold value. For Jack, his fame was simply a byproduct of doing what he loved, but to the people of Grelax 7, he had become a legend. In time, his methods even began to influence designs across the galaxy. Alien architects and manufacturers started building devices with easier access points and less complicated maintenance structures, inspired by Jack's insistence that simpler was often stronger. This shift led to a new generation of machines that were more reliable and easier to repair, changing the fabric of intergalactic industry. Even on planets far removed from Earth, Jack's legacy echoed in the designs of power stabilizers, engines, and countless other devices built with an emphasis on durability and accessibility. And so, Jack's legacy on Grelax 7 became more than a story of a miraculous repair. It became a lasting lesson on ingenuity, adaptability, and the power of practical solutions that would influence the galaxy for generations. As Jack Thorne watched the bustling spaceport of Grelax 7, now transformed in both spirit and function, he couldn't help but smile at how his small role had left such a lasting impact. What had started as a simple repair with tape and string had evolved into something far greater, a lesson that even the most advanced civilizations could learn from the grounded, hands-on ingenuity he had brought from Earth. Jack's approach had inspired a shift in thinking, reminding aliens and humans alike that sometimes the most profound solutions were found not in the complexity of technology, but in the simplicity of effort, creativity, and heart. As he returned to his workshop, ready for the next job, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing he'd left a legacy that was far larger than the tools he carried. The miracle mechanic of Grelax 7 would forever be remembered as the one who taught the galaxy that, no matter how advanced a society became, it could always find power in the basics. And that even in a universe of endless possibilities, sometimes all you really needed was a bit of tape and string.